where tech, manufacturing, and everything else under the sky collide. And I'm glad to be back here. My name is Ashwat Ismail, Editor-in-Chief of Astro AWANI, Malaysia. And this session, just to put context into this particular special session, is part of the WEF Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Supply Chains ongoing work, Frontier Technologies for Operations, AI, and beyond. And since I'm the repeat offender of Davos every year, I think it's best to recap for a bit. And when everyone is anxious around the topic of Gen AI, and this time around, in the heart of the kingdom, in Riyadh, and we have plenty of distinguished speakers, expert panels. Definitely we're going to explore further on the potential that lies at the intersections. And with our distinguished panel of experts and leaders, together with us today, panelists, Excellency Minister Bandar Alkhorayef, the Minister of Industry and Mineral Resources, Saudi Arabia, Professor Dr. Jian, Professor of Management, Founding Academic Director, Chief Human Resource Management Officer Program at China-Europe International Business School, and of course our superstar of tech for this session is Loosararian, Co-Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Gecko Robotics, and Sophie Miremadi, VP Global Government Affairs and Public Policy of AVEVA Group. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely, we're going to continue the discussion. We have the next 45 minutes going to focus on a lot of areas. We'll try to cover a lot of areas, and please jump in and make it a free-flow discussion and make it more interactive. Of course, we would like to start with a vision of the new era of manufacturing. When last January, when everyone was talking about Gen AI, technology, everyone is anxious about what's coming, what's next. And one of the key takeaway points during Davos discussion was stay resilient and be agile. Why? There'll be more strange things happen surrounding the area of supply chains, business, and AI is going to reorganize society, politics, economics, and the rest. So, talking about the vision of the new era of manufacturing, we would like to start with Mr. Alkhorayef as we look deeper toward 2030. Could you share with us your vision of definitely for the manufacturing landscape and the supply chains?
Thank you, and I would like to also, in my capacity as a minister, to welcome everyone here in Riyadh. I hope that it becomes appealing, so it's more in better weather than Davos, definitely. So, well, I think it's for us here in Saudi, scaling up our industrial base, moving as faster as possible is very important. So to us, that's one of the important elements of growth. We see the disruption that is happening globally with technology, allowing for countries like Saudi Arabia to really be able to capture different technologies and achieve the growth in the industrial, especially in the industrial side, but also in mining. The transformation that has happened in manufacturing in the last 25 years is actually in favor of countries like Saudi Arabia, where we can see that scale is no longer an issue. We can actually produce with much lower scale, trying to be more efficient. On the cost side, adapting the different technologies will allow business owners to be very productive and also cost efficient. In the energy side, we see the more and more solutions that can reduce energy, and that's also helping our emission targets in human capital development. The more we adopt technology, the more we can accommodate our citizens and our demographics, which is more and young people who are tech savvy, able to learn quicker. Training will be much faster. Today, we can see training on industrial applications, for example, using technologies like AI, virtual reality, and so on, increase the ability of training dramatically, almost to 80%. So in general, we are embracing, I think, one of the fears that other countries have with regards to technology taking over human capital is not an issue here in Saudi Arabia. In fact, it is the opposite. So, and also, I would like to say that Saudi Arabia is very well equipped in terms of how we look at this from a government perspective, because governments are more and more becoming essential in playing a role in pushing the adaptation of technology through infrastructure, be it physical or digital infrastructure, with the right or also programs of training. Regulation are very essential to ensure the integrity of the technologies that is used, also ensure cybersecurity and so on. And finally, governments have the ability to enable certain programs to scale up. We were talking earlier about our program for future factories program, which targets 40,000 factories to adopt AI, fourth industrial applications, things like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, and so on. So all in all, it's a great journey. For me, the risk is that people are sometimes skeptical about some of the technologies. I think we should be more embracing the technologies, making advantage, helping developers also to find use cases, find piloting of their technologies, so that they can actually come to life as quickly as possible.
Before we go straight into the skill sets, as well as building stronger human capital development, I would like to understand further, especially Sophie, your thoughts in terms of the current trend and looking, how do you foresee this sector evolving? Because on top of that, the underlying is about to achieve, to capture the future today, more sustainable, equitable growth at the same time.
Yeah, looking to the future from a software perspective, what we see is manufacturers being able to gather all of their data together into a living digital twin across their value chain. And whilst this will, in and of itself, deliver real benefits in terms of performance, efficiency, sustainability, it also provides a foundation for much faster adoption and innovation of other technology on top of that sort of digital layer. So what we've seen, in the past is manufacturers, factories getting better at using data and digital tools to optimize within a single plant. More recently, we've seen groups of factories to get connected together via the cloud, which delivers this really powerful network effect. So we've seen this, via some of the WEF lighthouse factories, but also here in the kingdom, where Al Marai, the food and beverage leader, has connected all their dairy production, so optimized all along that value chain. And looking ahead, what we envisage is this sort of connected industrial economy, where enterprises are able to draw data and insights and share those not just within their company, but also with their suppliers, with their customers, with regulators, and find new opportunities for ways to collaborate, and to deliver the really radical collaboration, cross-specialism that we're going to need in order to deliver really some genuinely sustainable economies and societies.
It's costly.
Not necessarily, because actually it sounds like a marathon, but it's a sprint. And each stage needs to deliver value and finance the next stage.
that layer of stages, Prof. Hanjan, how do you foresee, or what kind of changes do you foresee in the skill sets required?
I would say once we ask what the skill set we require, or how technology advancement will affect the manufacturing sector, I think maybe a better question is how would we want it to affect? Because innovation or technology or ability upgrading are two-way. Technology and human organization are two-way street. So on one hand, I think from the management perspective, they need to adapt it. They need to acquire more tech literacy, such as AI literacy, for example. It's only one of the advanced technologies. And these technologies will not be acquired not only at the top management level, but also very important for their middle managers, for all types of employees, because participation is the single force, I think, that leads to transformation. And also, technology can also bring, I think, three things. The first thing is efficiency, as we all discussed widely in this forum. And the second part is transformation of information. And managers also need to learn to manage with more symmetry information. Because nowadays, many managers tend to manage through information asymmetry. And the third part would be integration of knowledge and learning. It's especially through machine or AI or algorithm mediated social network. And we'll see. So the downside, or I worry about it, is now we are actually, the work becomes more fragmented. Yeah. So we want to bring it back. The organization is a tech social problem, or let's say social tech problem. So social tech system, and we need to bring those fragmented jobs, the pieces, back to integrate, to generate a collective wisdom. So that is the skills that we need for the next few decades, I think.
To address that worry, of course, human development, we would like to have more of Jake in terms of tech, and also combine and marry these two worlds together. But technology is not
a nature force. It is something we can control. We want it to. It's as good as we use it.
From technological advancements and breakthrough, Jake, would you like to respond to what Prof. Hanjan has outlined?
Yeah, I think that. Look, so I run a robotics company that does AI, and uses that to combine into enterprise software for clients. One thing I think I've found is that we can. There seems to be a lot of pontification on the impact that is going on with AI and data, and how that's transforming the way industries and manufacturing facilities operate and work. I can tell you from the plant facility level, that is not happening. That may exist at some level on the executive, and that may be what we're referring to, but I want to ground it in the facilities, whether it be in the US or in the region here, that what I've seen is the data infrastructure is a nice software tool called Excel. And sometimes even worse, maybe like more rudimentary than Excel. And so data management actually brings the question of what's the data integrity that our algorithms are being trained on. We talk about the importance of highest fidelity data driving outcomes with AI tools that we use every day. Maybe it's maybe it's looking up on some OpenAI ChatGPT. This is a very important component of driving industrial change. Is the data quality correct? And so a lot of times data quality is either incorrect or insufficient, or lacking context for the algorithm to be trained in. So that's why it's extremely important to ensure that there is a reimagining of, one, the networking at these facilities to be able to enable technologies like Wi-Fi, like 5G. Actually, Aramco has an initiative on this, which is extremely exciting as relates to smart IoT sensors and also robotics being able to pull in information and data to drive change into an existing or hopefully potentially some reimagined ontology. That ontology is quite important to ensure that the impacts that our staffers might deliver in terms of here's what's going on, or screens you might see in terms of this is what Industry 4.0 looks like, actually matches the reality at the ground and facility level, so that those that are running our manufacturing facilities or energy facilities are actually being equipped by data and decisions that can cross a bunch of layers in between. So I think there's a lot of excitement, and the realities that you're mentioning are real. But I think that reality has not hit the facility level or the one with the hard hat and the steel-toe boots.
I totally agree with you, because it seems to me sometimes we're using a lot of buzzwords, and we are actually following the management fashion. I don't know, I'm not sure whether AI would be, the next, probably not, hopefully not, the next management fashion that drives lots of top management and even the government's attention. And there are, again, first line, down to the earth questions about process. If the process is wrong, then the basics process is wrong, then you cannot digitalize it, because it's just you use the digitalization to fix the, or to the digitalize the wrong process will reduce the productivity.
So with this kind of magnitude, Minister Alkhorayef, maybe you can jump in from governmental affairs perspective and decision making.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent, discussion, because to me, how can we as a government create a culture, an ecosystem that allows, mass to get the benefit of the technology? If we take, for example, digital twin today, as you rightly said, without the proper data, you will not be able to capture the value of the technology. If we take mining, for example, mining is an area where we see will be able to benefit from so many tools, because of the fact that mines happen to be in very remote areas where we are setting 5G technology, connecting all of the equipment and the mine itself with the employees, getting the remote, ability to have remote control of different even vehicles. That's where you can see a model that can be looked at from a 36-degree. You can capture most of the value that you can get from technology. The question is, how can we spread this to the overall across the board? And that's really a combination of working with global players, which we are doing in our future factories program, pulling different solutions together, having a core team in the ministry to understand different sectors, trying to pick up areas where we can scale up. For example, food and beverage sector, pharmaceutical, steel making, cement, and so on, where if we start with one, we can actually move to scale it up. But it's a journey. It's a journey that we have to start with. And unfortunately, as you rightly said, we realized, because the future factory program, the first step we did was to do the assessment. So we chose SERI assessment as a model of assessing how much our readiness is, and it needs a lot of work. So even some basic stuff. So, but then we have the more we understand, the more we can find the right solutions. We are probably very fortunate in Saudi Arabia is that we have our manufacturing facilities are clustered in different industrial cities, where it creates also, a certain volume of business, where certain players can come, show their own solution, and then try to take it one by one. And at the end of the day, it is our job also to show, especially the SMEs, where is the value coming from? Because it's very hard to talk about, metaverse, for example. It's too hard to talk about it now. But what about how much we are investing in basic stuff, sensors and so on, our quality control, our inventory, how much we are going to reduce from that, our life cycle of the asset itself, and so on. How can we connect the different components of a plant with supply chain, with our suppliers, with our customers, and so on? The more we can educate, especially the SMEs, the more we can see adaptation become. And I'm more or less certain today also the challenges are all over. I was just in Hanover Messe last week. It's the same challenge everywhere. So big players like Aramco, Sabic, Ma'aden, Marai, I'm not really worried about, because they have the right resources, they have the right mindset to do what needs to be done. What needs really the involvement of government with a large scale is the SMEs, and I'm quite confident with partners like Schneider or Jake, we will get there.
You were with private sector before, and sorry to ask a bit of transactional question. What kind of measure that your ministry taking to expedite, at least to facilitate in terms of technological adoption, especially among SMEs? We're not talking about big companies, giants.
Well, the measure is the program. The program, why did we choose 4,000, for example? We chose 4,000 because from the different benchmarking we have done, we need at least 30 to 40% of the industrial base to be adopting these technologies. So we started with this vision, with this target, and then the program is detailed in a way that assessment has to be done, and then we take different companies together. I'm not telling you it's all rosy and nice, and that's why throughout the implementation in 2 years now, we are also modifying how we look at the different streams. One of the ideas we captured when we visited Hanover Messe is that we really need to have a core team in the ministry understanding the different solutions, trying to bridge the gap between the technology providers who sometimes talk too much advanced in terms of language, because this is what I used to do when I was in private sector, when you are selling a solution, and that's why I said to Jack, he's a good salesman, so I see a good future for him.
He is indeed a good salesman.
So you need to understand really the right language of how you can get the engagement of the client, or in this case, the user. And we need to look at the scale up. The government today, for example, offers the infrastructure, offers financing, sometimes some grants, training programs to, and I think there is much more. We even have a program we talked about yesterday. The bill, for example, the cost of insurance in Saudi is quite high compared to other regions. And the reason is that the visibility and predictability of the risk is not there. And we are trying to create, the more data we have about the facilities, the more assurance we are giving to insurance companies, and then they can reduce costs. It's very little things, but when you add them up, they make a huge contribution to the overall.
Prof. Hamjan, I would like to go with the question on strategy, but prior to that, from policy standpoint, you'd like to jump in, Jake?
Well, I think what His Excellency is describing is extremely important as it relates to technology. If you're selling technology as technology solutions, I found that they have a harder time landing, or the value that you can create from technology seems to get diluted on its way up to the executives. So the visibility of what the technology is doing can get diluted, both in the extreme or the lack of, in terms of the impact that technology was having. So you actually need to offer solutions if you're a technology company in terms of business metrics and quality. So how we started by selling or working with companies 10 years ago with robotics. That ended up not working that well. What we do now is we sell fill height optimizations for manufacturing facilities with their critical pressure vessel and tanks, which creates profit margin impact that's traceable, from the ground level with the robots and AI to the actual decisions that executives are making to impact the bottom line. So similarly with the insurance side, there needs to be, as a technology company, you need to be operating and creating a product that is actually selling a business optimization or a business improvement opposed to just technology for a technology sake. So I think that connection is quite important from the minister as it relates to technologists have to understand that there needs to be an EBITDA impact to your technology that's traceable. And so that's why data quality is quite important to ensure that traceability, you investigate and understand where the impacts are coming from.
So the traceability, from policy standpoint, Sophie, what's your assessment in terms of enhancing tech integration across sectors, industries?
I think this is, as the Minister said, where the public-private partnership really comes into its own. And also where stimulus around digitization and also sustainability can also be a big driver of innovation. A lot of that comes from the center, comes from the government. And just to give an example, I'll talk about Schneider Electric actually. So in order for Schneider to fill its sustainability commitments, it has to work along its supply chain. And so it has this innovation, this net zero project where it is working with its top suppliers to share technology, but also share learnings in order to reduce the carbon intensity of its supply chain, because this is Schneider's core competence. They do electrification and they do digitization, and that is what drives down the carbon footprint. So I think that's a good example of where a sort of perhaps a regulatory stimulus can feed through along the value chain.
What do you think, Prof. Hanjan, with that kind of strategy? And on top of that, and what other strategies should be employed? Of course, to keep not just the workforce, but the whole ecosystem engagement remain high, and of course to ensure the employees are central, the human capital is central to this transformation.
I would say it is about, the strategy is about attention management. That is where you allocate your attention, and also where the leadership and the media allocate their attention and leads people's attention. So now we are putting our attention too much, I think, on technology per se. We're not putting enough emphasizing on the employee and the people side. Taking the word augmentation, I think a better word would be hopefully create, because if we're not making the cake bigger, it is not adding much value to discuss, what kind of a healthy sugar or substitute on the cake. So it is making the cake bigger that, and also provide not only jobs, but high quality, good jobs to people that improve their engagement. That is the real, I think, action to put people at the center.
Oh. Yes,
So
Sophie.
I do.
Would you like to respond to that, Sophie?
Well, I was just going to add a perspective from what we see working with companies around how we see changes in the way that teams collaborate. I think when you had a problem, you used to take the problem solver to the problem. But now, through digital twin technology, you can take the problem to the problem solver, but you can also build new collections, new teams of problem solvers to work together on a problem. And we saw quite a lot of this happening and gaining pace during the pandemic. And one example is a leading manufacturer of vaccines that needed to have oversight of all of their manufacturing processes across the world, but they couldn't travel there. So they had to, via data strategy, to sort of give their supply chain managers access to an oversight of everything that was happening so that they could speed up their processes. But what they were also able to do was connect all their scientists together. So their scientists could look at the same data in the same format, and that enabled them to really refine their processes very quickly by connecting these teams of scientists at different manufacturing sites.
Right. I would like to open this discourse or discussion to the participants to actually ask questions. Anyone here has a question? Please just raise your hand and we'll pass you the mic. But on top of that, what WEF has been working on relentlessly, especially on the center for for advanced manufacturing and supply chains, I think what we have discussed so far, we try to find the best solution to capture the whole future starting from today. And Jake, I think what to expect in terms of moving forward from here to close the gap and the gap in between.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think I think one of the most interesting things is that some of the most incredible advancements, at least in the U.S., as relates to integrating new technology, comes when there's catastrophes, which I think is unfortunate. But when a bridge collapses or a highway fails or a power plant explodes, you typically get a reinvention of solving problems. And I think that unfortunately, that is a lot of times the largest driver of change is catastrophe, which I think is unfortunate. But I think what we're seeing in the region here is, I think, a very exciting light on a hill. And I think this is also true with developing and emerging economies who are very aggressive at advancing solutions maybe before they've hit global scale. And I think that's so important because if we wait till the catastrophe happens, it's too late. And the cost is too high, both economic and human. Yeah. So I think that the speed to adopt new techniques and practices, artificial intelligence, Gen AI being a big part of that, but also robotics and fixed sensors that are smart and intelligent, to reimagine what an ontology could look like if you rebuild it with new data sets, new infrastructure from the ground up, opposed to the systems that were built on today, which are 30 years old. The companies and also the governments that are quick moving to create incentives, remove permitting that slows us down, these are the countries that I believe are going to have the largest spikes in accelerated economic growth that will not necessarily be dependent on how quickly we can build new things. That's the key, I think, of technology, robotics, AI, and software in particular, is how do you get more out of the existing things you have? This is actually what we're doing with ADNOC at my company, as well as some companies in the region, but it's how do you get more barrels per day, for example, in production without increasing emissions, but in fact reducing them, as well as ensuring that you don't have a catastrophic failure because of the increased capacity. So it's exciting, but I think it takes quite a strong vision and companies that are aggressive with how competitive they want to actually be.
Well, if other industry players would like to take your best practices, what would that be in terms of how can the adoption, for example, of robotics and other technologies help to achieve sustainability objective and definitely our bigger goals of net zero goals in manufacturing and supply chains? Yeah,
so on the environmental side, about 18% is the study that just recently came out that is the U.S. Emissions percentage that can be reduced by 2030 if you stop catastrophic failures of critical assets in the energy and manufacturing sectors. You don't typically think about this. I mean, some of the largest recorded environmental events are when oil and gas catastrophic failures have recorded ever. So whenever there's a leak of a tank or an explosion of a pipeline, these are really bad. So technology like the ones we deploy help ensure that never happens, and then centralizes decision-making into a software platform attacking a business outcome. So I think it's all about ensuring that we can predict when things will fail. So predictive maintenance, digital twins are an essential part of that. Rich digital twins are even better, meaning a drawing can create a digital twin, but understanding what the actual asset looks like once it's been repaired or worked on or created, and then updating it. It's not a digital twin unless it is updated. And so that means not just structural integrity and health of infrastructure data needs to be ingested into a platform, but also operational data, walk-down data. Like there's a lot of different data sets or data layers that are needed in an ontology to actually produce an outcome that can drive some sort of change. So anyway, we can get into examples, but you have to ensure that your data truth, or your source of data is correct, interrogatable, and understood from the bottom level of an organization to the very top. I think actually incentive programs on the government side can actually create grants to accelerate new technology developments for specific problems identified by commercial. This is actually extremely useful. We found this in the government sector. That's led to a couple breakthrough technologies that we are now using in the commercial sector. But government grants is actually quite important because it reduces some of the capital risk for companies.
And to strike that balance, Jake and Raz panels, in Davos, I think some sort of understanding has been developed. It has to be regulated. But the question here, there must be a red line that cannot be crossed when it comes to technology moving into the next decade. Maybe Excellency Minister would like to jump in terms of, what are the right regulations need to be in place, but at the same time promoting sustainability and innovations. And people like Jake can actually keep on continuing what Prof. Hanjan has said, continue to create.
I think it varies from country to country because depending on how the scale and the structure. But if I look at Saudi Arabia, and I think we, as Jake was saying, I mean, how can we ensure that the advancement of the innovation is not subject to disaster? It is a culture. It is a part of what we are doing every day. So if we look at the Saudi industrial base, it is, we have the large players who can play a great role of helping new ideas come to life, helping them convert from an idea to an actual solution. It's the large players where their size allow them to do that. But also, we can help as a government. We can be as part of this because also experimentation is costing a lot of money, time, and so on. So that's an area where I think new technologies can be enhanced, can be the cycle from an idea to an actual, proof of concept can be shortened. That's where we can see the large players can help. The other side is that which are the technologies that we see can bring value to whatever we have as a country. And I give an example of the additive manufacturing. Today, additive manufacturing has shown it's a proven technology, it's working. The limitation is really in the material side, in the consumable side. So we see a great opportunity for Saudi Arabia because the consumables in additive manufacturing and 3D printing, either polymers or metals. How can we, as a country who's rich with petrochemicals, how can we ensure that our petrochemical industry and research is also taking advantage of this potential, and also our mineral side. Minerals are going to be very important. So today, for example, in our mineral side of the ministry, we are working with King Fahd University to look at the material science. How can we have more and more raw material that can be used as consumables for, that's where we see the great potential for just one technology, which is additive manufacturing. I'm sure if you look across the board in all technologies, countries will find where they can actually contribute, which part of the chain, and how they can do it. But leaving it to happen by itself is not going to be, it will probably take much longer. That's why we are taking advantage of this. We are working very close to, and then you can go to the scaling side of things. And today, for any large company, even Aramco or Sabic or Marai, they just cannot get the best of the technology if their suppliers and sub-suppliers and upstream, downstream. It's a complete ecosystem that will work perfectly if all work together.
Okay, as we draw closer to a close, let's look into a concrete action plan, at least from each and every speaker. Let's start with Prof. Jian. Can you share one concrete action or steps that need to be taken?
Is to hold the right expectation and encourage participation, because so far for digital transformations, we only have 20 to 30% of the companies has reported that it's valuable and it's successful. Going back to the basic principles of lean production, where the modern industrialization develops, it is the participation that makes a difference.
Jake?
I think the most impactful ways to show impact and reality that ends up affecting the folks who are every day working at manufacturing or mining facilities. It's the test is what tools are you using today that you didn't that you didn't use 10 years ago, and too often the answer is the same. So I think how you can prove that there's actually the action I would take is around whether it's through policy or through so you can either do it through carrot or stick, and motivating companies, leading companies in manufacturing in particular, to experiment and try through proof of values, new approaches to solving old problems, oriented around core business outcomes that actually matter to that company, whether it be environmental, safety, production, and then some way of distributing those learnings across the sector, or at least across that same company. That'd be the most meaningful way to move quickly towards changing the answer for the folks who are every day making things go to be different today than it was 10 years ago.
Right, Sophie.
Well, I'd agree with both of those points, but just to perhaps add to them, I think technology is there to help people to solve problems. And in the end, this is about culture, this is about leadership, this is about trust. If people don't trust the data, if they don't trust the tools, if they don't trust the legal and the ethical frameworks within which they're being deployed, then we're not going to get the adoption, and we're definitely not going to realize the benefits.
Minister?
Well, I think creating the right platforms, the ecosystem, making sure that all stakeholders are involved and understand their role. So from the entrepreneurs to the science side or RDI to the large players who actually are an ideal base for trial and implementation, and the education side. So I think a decision has to be made so that this kind of culture is being cultivated, and all stakeholders should be involved because it's just a journey that will evolve in so many great ideas that can be implemented very quickly.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude our session, and it's clear that intersection of tech and manufacturing, as well as supply chains, at the end of the day, it's about technology that would enhance the human qualities and human products. I would like to thank. Jake, you have 20 seconds if you'd like to jump in.
The thing I would also add is that capital has to follow those successes.
Right.
So I think the thing we didn't touch on is the importance of wealth funds, venture capital. We need to ensure that winners are chosen as it relates to technology, and so investments should flow quickly to the success stories of larger or...
That's exactly of what the Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Supply Chains of the World Economic Forum is doing at this particular moment. Thank you, everyone. And until we meet again for the next session, I'm Ashwat Ismail, and see you again. Thank you. Thank you, Minister.